could. From the person I trusted must destroy everything. The truth left me shattered and humiliated. I still remember the moment my world collapsed. It wasn't a car crash or a hospital call in the middle of the night. It was worse because it was deliberate. Pulled. Calculated. I was standing in front of 200 people at the town hall, sweat soaking through my shirt, my hands trembling against the podium. The words from the councilman's mouth felt like bullets. The charity accounts are drained, over $187,000 unaccounted for, and your name, Mr. Reynolds, is all over the withdrawals. The room erupted in whispers, gasps, judgment. My chest felt like it caved in. No, I croaked, shaking my head. No, that's not right. I didn't. A woman in the front row stood up, her face red with rage. She had donated in memory of her late husband. You stole from us, from sick children? The words cut deeper than any knife. I tried to speak, but my throat closed up. My heart pounded so hard I thought I might collapse right there on the stage. Faces I had known for decades, neighbours, friends, colleagues looked at me with disgust. Their eyes weren't eyes anymore, they were weapons. And then, in the back of the room, I saw her. Janet. My daughter-in-law. My son's wife. The woman I had trusted to help with the finances of the charity when I got sick last year. She stood there with her arms crossed, lips curled into something between pity and smug satisfaction. She didn't look shocked. She didn't look hurt. She looked like someone watching the final act of a play she had directed. My stomach dropped so hard I thought I'd vomit. Hey Janet, I rasped, my voice cracking. Tell them it wasn't me. Her expression didn't change. She tilted her head slightly, like she was studying me under glass. Then she gave the smallest shake of her head. And that's when I knew. The whispers grew louder. A man shouted from the back, thief. Another, you should be in jail. Someone spat on the floor in front of the stage. I stumbled back from the podium, my knees buckling. My hands clutched at the wood to keep me from falling. My vision blurred, my ears roared with blood. Panic attack. I knew it. The same one I'd had after my wife's funeral years ago. Only this time, it was worse because there was no sympathy. No one reaching out to steady me. Just contempt. Just hatred. I forced out words between gasps of air. I didn't touch the money, I swear to God. Please, you have to believe me. But no one did. And in the middle of the chaos, I heard Janet's voice. Calm. Smooth. I see. Dad, maybe it's better if you sit down. We'll sort this out privately. Dad? The word made bile rise in my throat. She said it like she cared, like she was a concerned daughter-in-law trying to protect me. But her eyes told the truth, they glittered with satisfaction. That was the moment my reality cracked. I realized I wasn't just being accused. I was being framed. And the person holding the knife was someone I had welcomed into my family. Someone I had defended, supported, trusted with my name, my reputation, my life's work. The shouting swelled until it was deafening. I staggered off the stage, humiliated, heart hammering like it might give out. My hand shook so violently I couldn't even grip the railing. As I reached the doors, someone shouted, "Monster." The word echoed in my skull, bouncing off every wall inside me. I pushed through the exit into the cold night air, my chest heaving, sweat pouring down my face. The town hall door slammed behind me like a prison gate. And that's when my phone buzzed. A text. From an unknown number. Just 4 words that froze my blood. You'll take the fall. I need to take you back, because none of this makes sense without knowing how much I trusted Janet. How much I believed in her. How blind I was. When my son, Michael, brought her home for the first time 15 years ago, I remember thinking he had finally found his match. She was sharp, well-spoken, polished in a way our family never was. We were blue-collar, hard-working people. Janet came from money, old money. She told us, though she liked to laugh, that she wasn't one of those spoiled rich kids. I liked her immediately. She was confident, but knew how to play humble. When my wife, Ellen, asked her about her family, she painted a picture of cold parents who valued appearances over affection. It made us pity her, want to bring her into our fold. And when Ellen passed from cancer, it was Janet who stepped up. She cooked meals, checked in on me, even drove me to doctor's appointments when stress landed me in the hospital. She'd squeeze my hand and say, "You're like a second dad to me." How do you doubt someone who says things like that when you're at your lowest? Michael adored her, though I noticed over the years she seemed to steer every decision in their marriage. Where they lived, what car they bought, how they spent holidays. At first, I chalked it up to her being organised. My son was a dreamer, not detail-oriented. She balanced him out. Or so I told myself. The red flags were there, of course. But I dismissed them, like an old fool who doesn't want to rock the boat. There was the Christmas when my granddaughter asked me why Santa didn't bring her the doll she'd baked for. Janet smiled too tightly and said, "Daddy and Grandpa can't always give us everything we want." Later, I found out Michael had bought it, but Janet had returned it because she wanted a more expensive stroller. Or the time the charity needed volunteers for our annual food drive. Janet offered to handle the money side since she had experience with bookkeeping. She never lifted a box, never stood in the cold handing out flyers. But she managed the donations, and people praised her efficiency. "Janet's got a gift," one of the board members said. "You're lucky to have her." And I believed them. When I fell ill last year with pneumonia and the doctor ordered me to rest, I reluctantly handed over temporary control of the accounts. Janet was the obvious choice. Michael was too busy with work, and I didn't want to burden the younger volunteers. Janet insisted she'd only step in until I felt better. She even said, "It'll give you peace of mind, Dad." Peace of mind. The cruelest joke of all. During those months, donations soared. We had a record year. People praised Janet's organisation, her modern touch. She convinced us to move to online fundraising platforms to modernize the records. I was proud of her, proud of what I thought was family stepping up. But sometimes, when I'd ask to see the books, she'd smile that dazzling smile and say, "Don't worry, Dad, it's all under control, focus on your health." And I let her. My son never questioned her either. If anything, he defended her fiercely. "Dad, Janet's brilliant at this stuff. You've been carrying the charity for decades. Let her help." I wanted to believe it. I wanted to believe the woman my son married, the mother of my grandchildren, was truly the daughter I thought I'd gained. But then there were cracks. Small things, like a supplier calling me directly about a late payment, or donors asking why their receipts didn't match their pledges. I'd bring it up, and Janet would laugh softly, like I was being paranoid. "Oh, Dad, it's just a clerical error. Don't stress." I told myself she was right, that I was old, tired, imagining shadows. The biggest shadow came one night when I couldn't sleep. I went downstairs for water and overheard Janet in the living room whispering furiously into the phone. I caught just a few words transfer. "They'll never know, trust me." When I stepped into the room, she snapped the phone shut and smiled. "Couldn't sleep, Dad? Want me to make you tea?" I pushed the unease aside. I told myself I was reading too much into it. Because how could the woman who cried at Ellen's funeral, who tucked my granddaughter into bed with lullabies, who called me Dad, how could she ever be capable of deliberate betrayal? I see it all so clearly now. The manipulation. The grooming of my trust. Every moment was a chess move, and I was the fool who believed I was loved. And the night that it all came crashing down, I should have known it was coming. Because that morning, I opened my laptop and found an email from the charity's treasurer. Subject line, "We need to talk, urgent, about Janet." The email from the treasurer hit me like a punch to the gut. My hands shook so violently I could barely scroll. Every number, every transaction, every donation I had ever trusted Janet to manage was wrong, grossly wrong. It wasn't just a minor mistake. It was systematic, precise, and deliberate. She had siphoned off nearly $190,000 over months, funneling it through fake vendors, ghost accounts, and shell companies. The careful, methodical way she hid it made me sick. Every signature, every approval I had unknowingly signed her crimes into legitimacy. I called the treasurer immediately. His voice trembled over the line. I didn't want to believe it either, sir, but Janet, she's been at this for months. We've traced the transfers. She knew exactly what she was doing. My chest tightened so hard I could barely breathe. But why? Why would she? Why me? It's not about you personally. She covered her tracks so well, everyone thinks you're the one responsible. Responsible. The word echoed in my head. Accused. Humiliated. Villainized in my own town. In my own family. The nightmare escalated quickly. By the next morning, a friend from the community centre called, her voice trembling. "Dad, everyone's talking. The news is picking up the story. They're saying the charity's founder stole the money. I didn't know how to tell you." I dropped the phone. My knees gave way. My heart pounded so violently I thought it might burst. My name was already on social media threads, whispered in grocery stores, thrown around in phone calls. Embezzler, the fraud, the shame. And Janice, she smiled. She acted like nothing had happened, like she was a calm eye in the hurricane she had created. She walked through the house that morning carrying coffee for me, humming as if our world wasn't collapsing. I confronted her, shaking, tears blurring my vision. "Janet, I know what you did. How could you?" She sipped her coffee slowly, her eyes cold, calculating. "Dad, you always were too trusting. It's sad, really. I tried to protect you from stress, from worry, and I handled things my way. You should thank me." Anchor. My stomach turned. Rage and despair collided in a crushing wave. Then the treasurer called back, confirming my worst fear. Banks, auditors, even a lawyer had traced the embezzlement. Janet had been meticulous. She knew accounting, law loopholes, and digital transactions. She had manipulated every record, every receipt. I wasn't just accused, I was the perfect scapegoat. I confronted Michael. My son, my boy who I raised to believe in honesty and family, stared at me in disbelief. "Dad, Janet wouldn't do that. Maybe there's a mistake." His voice cracked slightly, but I could see the tension. He was caught between his wife and his vow. I was too weak to yell. I could only shake my head, my hands trembling. By that evening, Janet had already spun a story for the extended family. I was stressed from illness, confused, and mismanaging funds. She painted herself as the only reasonable adult, the only one keeping the charity afloat. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw something. But I couldn't. My world was unraveling faster than I could process. My heart felt hollow, like the betrayal had hollowed out a part of me I'd never get back. The anxiety hit in waves, leaving me shaking, nauseated, sleepless. My neighbours stared at me differently. Friends avoided me. Even strangers whispered as I walked down the street. Then came the cruelest twist. One of Janet's collaborators, a quiet volunteer I had always trusted, revealed she had been in on it from the beginning. She told me it was temporary just until she could, get things organised. She said you wouldn't mind. Wouldn't mind. She made everyone complicit with lies, manipulating not just me but the people I trusted most. By the end of that week, the charity's board suspended me, froze accounts, and demanded an official audit. My reputation, my life's work, my identity gone. And Janet, she still walked around with that polished smile, untouched, untouchable, like she'd orchestrated the fall of a man for sport. I didn't eat. I didn't sleep. Panic attacks became daily. Anxiety clawed at every corner of my body. And all I could see was her face, calm, smug, victorious. That's when I realised the reality I had been living in for years. The life I thought was safe was gone forever. The person I had called family had turned my world into a nightmare. And the nightmare was just beginning. I couldn't live like that anymore, choked by humiliation, anxiety, and betrayal. I had to confront her. I had to force her to show the world the truth. It started in our living room. My hand shook so violently I nearly dropped the stack of evidence I'd gathered: bank statements, audit notes, screenshots of suspicious transactions. I looked at Janet, standing there in that immaculate blouse, hair perfectly styled, smiling like the predator she was. "Janet," I said, my voice low, trembling, "we need to talk now." She tilted her head, expression casual. "Of course, Dad. Calm down, let's sit." I slammed the papers onto the table. "Don't act like this is a game. I know everything. The transfers, the fake accounts, the donations. You stole every penny." A smile didn't falter. If anything, it widened. "You really think you understand, don't you? Poor old Dad. Worrying about numbers while life passes by. I was just efficient, doing what needed to be done." I felt my blood boil. "Efficient? You ruin me, my name, my reputation. People think I'm a thief." "People believe what I tell them," she said softly. "And why wouldn't they? You were vulnerable, sick, stressed. It was so easy." It was true. She had exploited every weakness, every crack in my trust. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might explode. I grabbed the phone and called Michael. My son came rushing in, pale and confused. "Dad, what's going on?" I gestured toward Janet, pointing at her with the trembling papers. "She did this. She's been stealing for months, framing me, destroying our family." Michael looked between us, disbelief and fear in his eyes. "Janet, is that true?" She didn't flinch. She walked over, calm poised, and placed a hand lightly on his shoulder. "Michael, your father's upset, but don't worry. I've always protected this family." I couldn't take it. Rage and despair collided. I shouted, tears streaking my face. "Protect? You call destroying me, destroying our charity, destroying everything I've built protecting." The confrontation escalated until my neighbours, alerted by shouting, started gathering outside the windows. My family, extended relatives, they all arrived, drawn into the chaos. Everyone could see the tension, feel the hostility, hear the tremor in my voice. It became a public spectacle in my own home. Janet, ever the actress, played calm, collected, innocent. "It's just a misunderstanding," she said. I did what had to be done. I realised the depth of her manipulation. She could lie while facing witnesses, smile while ruining me, charm my son while orchestrating my public downfall. The authorities arrived when a neighbour called 911 after hearing me scream, thinking I was in danger. The police listened, examined the documents, and froze Janet's accounts. They informed me an investigation would start immediately. The legal consequences were inevitable. She had no choice but to be accountable, but the social and personal damage, that would take years to heal. By the time the police left, the living room was a war zone of accusations, tears, and shattered trust. Michael refused to speak to me, torn between his wife and his father. My grandchildren clung to Janet, unaware of the devastation she caused. News spread through the town within hours. Emails, messages, social media posts. People I had known for decades now whispered about me, avoiding me on the street, staring, judging. My reputation was in ruins. And Janet? She tried to maintain her facade of calm authority, but I saw cracks in her veneer. She was scared now, scared that the law would catch up, that the web of lies she built would unravel completely. But she never admitted guilt. Not once. Not in front of anyone. The emotional cost was staggering. I had panic attacks multiple times a day, chest tight with anxiety, unable to sleep or eat. I felt betrayed, not just financially but on the deepest, most personal level. She wasn't just a criminal, she was a master manipulator, someone who had weaponized my love for my family against me. That night, sitting alone in the wreckage of my living room, I realized something. This wasn't just about money. It was about trust, love, and the destruction of family. And for the first time, I understood that the road ahead would be long, painful, and lonely. Janet had shattered everything, and there was no turning back. The first weeks after Janet's exposure were a blur of paperwork, police interviews, and sleepless nights. I walked through the house like a ghost, each room a reminder of what had been stolen, not just the money, but my dignity, my trust, my family's sense of safety. Therapy was the first step. I met with Dr. Harris, a stern but compassionate psychologist, who asked me to confront what I'd been feeling: rage, shame, grief, betrayal. "You weren't just defrauded, Mr. Reynolds," she said during our first session. "You were manipulated, and that leaves scars, real ones." I nodded, though I felt numb. Scars. That's exactly what it was. Deep ones carved into my heart. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I was terrified that if I let my guard down, Janet's lies would keep haunting me. One of the hardest moments was facing the community. I held a meeting at the charity hall, open to donors and neighbours. I had to explain, apologise, and clarify that I was the victim, not the perpetrator. Standing there, I felt all eyes on me, some sympathetic, some sceptical. My voice shook as I said, "I was betrayed by someone I trusted more than anyone. The money was stolen, and I am devastated, but I want you to know I had no part in it." There were murmurs, but slowly, recognition, understanding, and even tears appeared in a few faces. A few people came forward afterward to offer support. One elderly donor hugged me and whispered, "We know you, sir. We know your heart." That small validation began to feel like sunlight breaking through stone. Financially, it was a nightmare. The charity's accounts were frozen, legal battles loomed, and restitution from Janet was uncertain. I had to learn to navigate forensic audits, meet with lawyers, and rebuild credibility from scratch. Each form I signed, each meeting I attended, reminded me how thoroughly my life had been manipulated. Family relationships were the most painful. Michael struggled to reconcile the truth with his love for Janet. He pulled away at first, ashamed and confused. I couldn't force forgiveness or understanding. I could only be honest, patient, and present. Over months, slow conversations, shared tears, and mutual acknowledgement of betrayal allowed him to begin processing what happened. Therapy helped me rebuild boundaries. I learned to recognize manipulation, to trust instincts over politeness, and to understand that loving someone doesn't mean ignoring red flags. I learned that recovery wasn't about forgetting, it was about reclaiming control over my life, even when the world felt unsafe. I also began reaching out to others who had been hurt by betrayal, old friends, neighbours, colleagues. Talking openly about the experience, hearing their support, their outrage, their empathy, it became a lifeline. I discovered a small but powerful community of people who had been through similar devastation and survived. Their stories fueled my own resilience. Months later, the legal system caught up with Janet. She faced criminal charges, and while justice could never fully undo what she did, seeing her held accountable lifted a weight from my chest. I attended the hearings with my son, our relationship slowly healing, grounded in honesty and cautious trust. Today, my life isn't perfect. The charity has reopened under a new board. I still flinch when someone mentions finances, and trust comes slowly. But I am stronger, wiser, and more discerning. I've reclaimed what I can, my peace, my dignity, and my voice. I've learned hard lessons. Love and trust can be weaponized, family bonds can be exploited, and appearances can be deceiving. But I've also learned resilience. I've learned to forgive myself for the blind trust I extended. And I've learned that even after devastation, life can grow again stronger, harder, and more vigilant. Sitting in my study now, looking at the sun filtering through the curtains, I feel a quiet triumph. The pain is still there, yes, but it doesn't rule me. I survived a betrayal so ruthless it almost broke me, but I'm still here, still breathing, still fighting. And one day, I hope, the lesson will serve as a warning. Trust, yes, but always watch the hands that hold.